Hello, I'm April of Permaculture Visions, and this tutorial was made on the lands of the Australian Wadi Wadi Nation. The Dharawal people lived here first, near Wollongong, New South Wales. And I'm going to have a look at the elements in a permaculture design. It's a design tool that was first proposed by Bill Mollison. But deconstruction can be a bit misleading. Although this tutorial is about analysis, that is simply a tool for understanding components of a system. It will reveal a few insights observable in the here and now, but over time and with practice and observation, you will start to notice a lot more. You will create a design that will enable the inhabitants to grow, because the system is not a machine. It is a living organism that wants to grow and change, and everything within the system wants to express its full potential. Breaking the system apart doesn't reveal synergy, the way things work together. This tool is limited, but it's still useful in the framework of developing a holistic design. And analysis can be quite fun. The observation is the most important activity. We can look at a chicken and see all its anatomy. We can see its personality. We can look at its needs, and we can see what it provides. And we can also see how one chicken is different to another. We call that intrinsic characteristics. The needs can come from a food forest, food scraps, its enclosure, the tank, a hose, and some shallow dishes. And the functions, the things that it provides, can go to our kitchen and back into the food forest. This tutorial aims to help you feel more comfortable with defining an element, determining how important that element is to you and your site, and analysing the element, ready to integrate it with other elements in your permaculture design. What is an element? In permaculture design, an element is a component or a set of parts. Like it could be a tree, or it could be a wood lot, like a bunch of trees, a copse. But generally an element is independent of other beings, other elements. It's able to function on its own. And often they need inputs from other elements, such as a tree needing sunlight, water, and minerals. And an element produces stuff that needs to be managed. A tree provides shade, leaf litter, fruit, lumber, humidity, carbon sinking, habitat. A tree is an element that has needs, many thousands of functions, and each tree is intrinsically different. In a few seconds, I'm going to show you a big list of potential elements. Please don't start making a big list of your own. This is not advertising, urging you to get more elements. Remember that a good design is not about what you have, but how it works. And so function has to be our first priority. I'm not rushing out to get an alpaca to protect my chickens. We have a giant fox that lives in this area, and only an alpaca could take that fox on. I'm not going to get the alpaca and the high fencing and the tree guards and the shelter and the water pipes that I would need just to keep the alpaca alive. I'm not buying all those elements because it would be far cheaper and better for the planet to simply buy organic eggs. There has to be at least 3 functions for me to get an element. Even my pizza oven does three things, at least three things. It helps clear up a lot of dead wood. It cooks pizzas and then bread and cakes and things like that once it cools down. It provides ash and charcoal, and I make biochar in it. See that red vessel, the heavy pot on the right-hand side? You can make biochar in a vessel like that. And when we have pizza parties, the pizza oven is a wonderful way to socialize as you cook. And as a bonus, when it's not running, which to be honest is most of the time, the pizza oven is a sculpture made with broken tiles and ceramics, and it starts conversations about food. So here is the big list of possible elements. Elements usually have needs, like that alpaca. Lots of needs. Most elements need nutrients, water, protection, boundaries, attention, seasonal shade, light, cool or warmth, we can call that generally climate control, income or energy, access, entertainment and mateship. And we would be wise to prioritize those needs. Here's how Maslow prioritized the needs for people. He said how the physiological needs, our needs for clean air, water, food, shelter, sleep and clothing, were fundamental. And then as we go up his hierarchy of needs, we would dream and hope that we could achieve self-actualization, feeling that we've reached our potential. If an element is fulfilling its full potential, then it's happy and it's being used well. But I've noticed that some elements, they don't have any needs. And these can be vital elements like water, air, rock. They don't have needs. So our needs emerge from our need to manage them. Water, as I said, doesn't have any needs, but we definitely need it. And so we have to manage it. We're going to capture it, store it, and use it. Here is an old sea kelp water carrier from the Maori people in New Zealand. Their needs for fresh water were really high, and they've discovered they could carry it about in a bag made from sea kelp. Rocks or minerals are another element that have no needs. The rock cliffs have no needs at all, but they have a powerful influence. As a windbreak, thermal mass, reflected light, security can be achieved with cliffs. Think of all the castles on the cliff tops. Minerals come with the rocks. And you can have water harvesting from the top, and it is also a really great building material. Jethro Kettle was built about 990 through to 1140, and it's a great example of architecture that used the nearby cliffs. The scholars have estimated it required 500,000 work hours to build, and they chopped 26,000 trees to make this beautiful palace. The palace was made of 50 million sandstone blocks, and the irony is, within 400 years, the loss of those trees and the overpopulation of the valley caused it to become unlivable. The design must consider the natural function of each element. What do cliffs normally do? They erode, they collapse. So this design hadn't considered the potential impact of the cliffs on the housing and animals. So let's consider, how do we meet the needs? The needs of an element can be creatively sourced from another element. Here you can see the nutrients could come from rock, seaweed, shells, or plants and animal manure. There's many different options. So we had a quick look at the needs, and now let's look at the products, or the output or throughput, because it's not really going out of the system, it's going in around to another element. And some people might consider it waste, the things that come out of an element. Let's call them products. They can be absorbed by another element, and they can be absorbed through a means of natural tendencies, gravity, wind, chemical absorption. So now let's look at how we use the waste, the throughput, or the production of an element. The nutrients could be used by all living beings, but not straight away, right? So the nutrients from a chicken, the poop from the chicken is not going on my table, but it goes to the garden, a tree, and from the tree it comes into the fruit, from the fruit it comes to me. Water from the chicken, they don't actually excrete much water, but that again goes through the process of being part of the food forest. The boundaries. Chickens don't really provide boundaries except to their own chicks. Attention and management. Well, some people actually use their pets as a mental health tool. It gets them out of bed. It stops them from falling into Great Depression. Seasonal shade. Well, a chicken doesn't really give much of that except to their chicks. Light. A chicken doesn't provide that. Climate control, definitely, to the eggs and chicks. Access. No, not really. It doesn't provide access. An element that supplies access would be a gate. Entertainment, definitely for some people, they're entertained by chicken. And mateship, yes, to the other chickens and sometimes to other pets. That's just a good example from a chicken. Right, so now we could draw this up on a card. I like the cards because they're very tactile and they're able to be moved around on the floor or the table when you want to connect different elements. For each feature that's listed in the needs, the provisions, and intrinsic characteristics, it's a good idea to put a priority, to put a score, whether it's high, medium, or low. Ask yourself, what does this element really need to thrive? And go in there and put high priority on that. And what can this element provide? And what are its intrinsic characteristics? So let's explore wicking beds as an example. I know that their needs are pretty specific. They need level ground, a water input. I just use a hose off my rainwater tank. A protective barrier between the soil and the water reservoir underneath. I actually use hair because my son has a hair salon, so I've got a lot of hair. But coir is a good mesh material and old cotton rags. They do need protection from things like rabbits that could get underneath. I don't have rabbits, I'm lucky, but there's plenty of other things. I've got big deer in our garden that could knock them over, so they do need protection. The functions include that they provide food, maybe mental health. People like getting out and growing stuff. It's got a cultural interest because it's quite a pretty thing, and it starts conversations about bird cages and not keeping birds in cages but keeping them out. So it's an anti-aviary. The mobility of the wicking beds, even if they're 1 square meter, if you do a cubic meter, that's a ton. but you can use a forklift. And my friend, Judith Collins, moved her entire garden with a forklift and a truck because they were wicking beds. And it's possible to integrate aquaculture into larger wicking systems. But one of the unintended outputs or throughputs in this system is that it's going to have microplastics from the plastics that you use to hold the water. So some alternative materials include terracotta, metal, and glass. And one of the best intrinsic features of wicking systems or wicking beds is that they're scalable. You can have 1 or 10 and connect them together. So here I go. I'm going to be analysing one of my wicking beds that's made in a bird cage. I have about 5 of these now, so they work really well to raise seedlings. I'm going to go in and mark all the features that I know are high needs and high provisions. Yes, they need nutrients for the seedlings, and I use worm castings as my growing media. They do need protection from being knocked over, as I mentioned before, and they need pretty high observation so that I put them on the pathway to the geese and the chickens. So I see them twice a day. But because they're wicking, they've got a wicking system in them, I can neglect them for a couple of days at a time. And part of my attention is the act of labeling the plants. And I'm really lax about labels. The worst thing for seed raising is to forget to label them. So I put pencil and used wooden cutlery right next to these cages so I don't have an excuse to not label. The cage provides good protection and support for seedlings. The expertise required is really low, and the costs of installation and maintenance is also low. And because they're high portability, they have really high value to me. I take them to workshops and festivals. They're a great conversation starter. Okay, so here's my wicking pot. Could be next to the outdoor workspace. Doesn't have to be. It does need a little bit of charcoal, but that charcoal's movable, doesn't have to be nearby. Could be near sheltered rest area, but doesn't have to be. Can't really be near the play area because a ball could wreck it. So that sheltered rest area with its hammock over there. It could have parsley in it if that's of high value to me. It does need some compost, but it doesn't have to be near the compost. It could be in a protected plant nursery, or it could be separate. It definitely needs that fence between it and any threats. It could be, if it contains parsley and cooking herbs, not just seedlings, it could be next to my outdoor dining kitchen area. It would be best to put it on the sunny side. I'm having that as north of the house, because the house can act as a windbreak. It doesn't need to be near my outdoor shower. It could use charcoal from the fuel stove, but it doesn't need to be near that. That needs to be near the house and the outdoor kitchen. Here we've got a rainwater tank. I've got a pump, but if I didn't, I would have that uphill. It could be inside the greenhouse, and it could be sheltered by a tree that makes a shape like a visor. Now, something like a macadamia tree could serve that function. I'm going to put them up there. This is where the fun begins. Once you've got a bunch of these cards, you can set them together like dominoes, or even better than dominoes, because they can go out to a variety of different connections. You can see videos about integration of the elements in our YouTube channel, Permaculture Visions. That will help you ponder about the relationships between these elements. Enjoy!